Hey Fury, there are many things wrong with the universe. Poverty, hunger, the fact that I let the clone that said they liked the last Airbender movie live. Actually, you know what? Hang on a moment. Problem solved. But there are also a number of good things in the world.
And what would those be, Tim?
Fantastic question, Satan's pot plant. And one of those things is Race to the Edge Season 6, and while I would love to analyze each of the episodes individually, that would mean that I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. Let's be honest, I'm sleep deprived anyway. Oh, and caution, spoilers! So today we'll be talking about Johann as a villain, Hiccup's character arc, Viggo Grimborn, the dragons, the finale, and where the story is going next, as well as a couple of things that I felt I would have changed about Season 6. But let's take a look at the first episode, In Plain Sight, where Hiccup and Toothless learn that Traitor Johann is in fact Traitor Johann. I must admit, I was honestly surprised that they revealed Johann as their villain to Hiccup and the gang so early on in Season 6. I really thought that they were going to go through a story where Johann is manipulating them as their ally and their friend until one of them eventually realized that they've been played all along and everything just goes terribly wrong for them. And while that kind of story may have been interesting, I was actually pretty happy. I mean, it wouldn't have been a twist because we already knew that Johann was the villain, so it's not like a conventional, they've been manipulating us all along story kind of thing. And I was actually incredibly pleased with how they made Johann into the villain. He was assertive and threatening in a way that I didn't think it was possible for his character to be. It came out in his voice and his posture, and the fact that he could throw knives in the way that he did was really cool. And on a side note, it was really cool to learn that all of the stories that he's been telling throughout the entire series have actually been from other more accomplished sailors. It felt like a reference to Gilderoy Lockhart from Harry Potter, who told the stories of far more accomplished wizards, though I don't know if that was intentional. I'm just gonna say it was, because I like it that way.
Gilderoy Lockhart, 5-time winner of Weekly's most charming smile.
Now, the following episode, No Bark All Bite, I actually felt was one of the better episodes of the season. It took time to actually explore the feelings of betrayal that Hiccup and Stoke were experiencing, as well as giving us a chance to see Hiccup struggle with leadership, which is thematically important for his character. In particular, what happens in the second movie, that moment. Yeah, I'm sorry for reminding you. In fact, to take this a step further, in episode 10, Darkest Night, Stoic is knocked out by the Flyers and Hiccup is made chief temporarily. Now, this was a really good move for Season 6, I felt, because one of Hiccup's biggest struggles is him trying to balance his duty to his tribe with what he feels he needs and wants to do as a dragon rider, his perhaps duty to Toothless. This struggle is established in the first movie and explored heavily in the second movie.
But I've decided
to make you chief!
It's not me, Astrid. All those speeches and planning and running the village, that's his thing.
And from what we know of it, we can assume this is actually going to be a major conflict for Hiccup and Toothless in the third movie. By taking away Hiccup's father figure, the leader of the tribe that he always looked up to, it forced him to kind of stand up and see what he was made of. Something that he really needs to do if he's ever going to be a good chief. But it's time to talk about my favorite character, the one, the only, Viggo Grimborn. There are a number of things that we need to talk about, but to begin with, I would just like to say that I was right, that Viggo would eventually turn good and join the Riders, and in the episode Triple Cross, he did just that. This was probably my favorite episode of the season. As for why, well, let's break that down. Interestingly, the confrontation that we first see between Hiccup and Viggo is actually one of the few times, in fact, the only time that I can remember off the top of my head where Hiccup is the one to actively attack his opponent first. He went after him with the sword in what seems like a real attempt to kill or at least maim or hurt Viggo. We can see the intensity of the animosity that has been built up over their war throughout the past seasons. I'm so glad that they didn't just gloss over that, but they actually acknowledged there was a history between the two of these characters. Now, when looking at the scene through a thematic lens, we've always known that Hiccup and Viggo are kind of meant to be reflections of one another. They both rely on outsmarting their opponent rather than just beating them into the ground. Seeing Viggo wield a flaming sword gave the battle a weird kind of symmetry, and on the topic of that sword, I was right again. I was hoping to see where Hiccup gets the ideas for his inventions that we see him use throughout How to Train Your Dragon 2, and it seems that he got the idea for his zippleback gas inside his blade Inferno from Viggo. Well, that and possibly the Dragon Eye. But the real reason that I loved this episode was kind of masochistic, to be perfectly honest. It was the fact that Viggo and Hiccup's plan failed. The lenses weren't there. I honestly wasn't expecting that. Race to the Edge has a tendency to have things get really bad for the writers, but then they come up with a plan and then they save the day. But this episode, everything went wrong. The lenses weren't there, they lost to the Skrill, Viggo ended up giving up his life to save Hiccups, and Hiccup was nearly captured. I suppose you're asking why this is a good thing. Well, the show took a darker turn and raised the stakes in a way that I felt was really necessary to give the finale kind of a lot more meaning, to show the audience what they could lose. It showed how threatening Johann really was as a villain. And on the topic of raising stakes, this season we really got the feel that the world was in danger from Johann. The war ended up coming to Berk, to the Edge, to Defenders of the Wing Island, to Wingmaiden Island, to the Berserker Island, even Vanaheim itself was attacked. All of these places that we have seen built up in the seasons beforehand played a role in the war at the end. Even Elven and the Outcast, which on a side note sounds like a really cool band name. And so we move on to the next topic, dragons. So in past seasons we have gotten a new dragon virtually every single episode, but season 6 took a step back from that and only gave us a couple, which by the way I felt worked because they were trying to create a story arc that went across the whole season, not just have one-off episodes. The Dramillions that we meet are really the only major addition to the dragon world, and they were by far a fan favorite. I've had a number of you email me drawings of them talking about how much you like them, as well as spotting really interesting things about them. Most importantly, that the Dramillion can imitate the fire blast of any dragon that they meet, and if you look closely, one of the Dramillions in the background uses a Night Fury blast. It has the sound, the color, and the explosion that we all recognize. What this means, we can only speculate, but it does tell us that at least one of these Dramillions have seen a Night Fury at some point in their lives. How? When? Well, that is a story for another time. My question to you, Subfuries, is how do the Dramillions match up against the dragons that we've met in previous seasons? Are they your favorite? Do you not like them? Let me know down in the comments below. And now we must talk about the finale, the King of Dragons Part 2, where I must say that once again, I was right. A Bewilderbeast egg was found beneath Berserker Island, and the reason that the dragons couldn't get near was because of a defense mechanism that kept them away. Though to be fair, I was wrong about a number of predictions that I made about this season, and that's okay. We're theorizing, we're not always going to get it right.
You suck!
Having the finale turn into a three-way battle between Krogan, Johann, and Hiccup, I felt made for a really multi-dimensional final battle. And there are a couple of interesting details, like for example that Toothless actually came and saved Hiccup at the end, which wasn't supposed to be possible given dragons aren't meant to come near the island, but the fact that Toothless can come close while other dragons can't foreshadows that he'll be able to best the Bewilderbeast in the second movie, that he isn't affected by the mind powers of the Bewilderbeast. And honestly, I really wasn't expecting them to find an actual Bewilderbeast beneath Berserker Island. I was really surprised to see that, and I'm not sure that it was actually necessary. It felt a little odd to see, and it may have been cooler to just have Krogan, Johann, and Hiccup fighting over the egg. I'm not sure why we needed the Bewilderbeast underneath the island. Like, why couldn't one have just laid an egg there for it to hatch at a later point? It was also technically the Bewilderbeast that stopped Johann, not Hiccup, which I found a little strange given Viggo's line earlier on.
Hiccup, you're more ruthless than you realize.
Personally, and it's okay if you don't feel this way as well, I would have preferred for Hiccup to take down Johann, or at least Toothless, rather than the Bewilderbeast. And finally, some boggling questions about the end of the season. So we see that the egg is entrusted to Valka by the Wing Maidens, which is a nice touch, but does this mean that this Bewilderbeast is less than a few years old? I mean, the second movie certainly suggests that the Bewilderbeast is way older, but if Valka had a Bewilderbeast egg all along, why did she never mention it? Krogan is also taken before Drago, before promptly being killed for disappointing him. And a weird thing, Drago acts as if he doesn't have a Bewilderbeast yet, but this is only like a couple of years before How to Train Your Dragon 2 at most. Does this mean that he found a Bewilderbeast egg and raised it to that size within just a couple of years? I would really struggle to believe that. So yeah, I may have changed the ending a little. Oh, and on a side note, yes, this is Mildew that we see Drago ordering to go get the maps. Now, I am not a shipper. There are very few fictional relationships that I care deeply about. In fact, Thinking about it now, only one really comes to mind. Hashtag Jim and Pam forever. But that being said, there were some particularly lovely Hickson moments, notably this. Overall, I was really happy with the final season of Race to the Edge, and I'm sad to see it go. In fact, it was actually better than I expected it would be. I may have changed a few things about the ending, but that doesn't make it bad by any means, and there were far too many good things for me to talk about in just one video. The story of Hiccup and Toothless then leads into How to Train Your Dragon 2, a movie that we all know and love. But my question of the day, what did you think of season 6? What were your favorite moments, and what might you have changed? Let me know down in the comments below. In the meantime, if you like what I do, I'd love for you to come support me on Patreon, where you can talk to me more directly, and there are perks to choose from. Also, come say hello to me over on Twitter or Facebook. I love talking with the community. It's a pleasure to interact with you guys. I haven't had a moment to fit them in yet, so I'll do it now. All hail Mishka. Stay nerdy, Sub-Furies, and we, your supreme overlord and myself, will see you in the future.